I'd like to call to order the Budget Committee meeting November 16, 2017 at 4 o'clock. Roll call, Ms. Kathy.
Yes, sir. Mr. Engelpont?
Here.
Mr. Collins?
Here.
President Guidry?
Here.
Vice Chairman Landry?
Here.
Mr. Latour?
Here.
Mrs. Trimmy?
Here.
And Chairman White?
Here.
Everyone's present.
Item number 3, consideration of making a recommendation with reference to approving requests from the following entities for grant funding from the Gaming Fund. A, Ward 2 Gravity Drainage District Number 9 of Ward 2 for $45,900 for costs associated with drainage and ditch improvements on Dolphin Ball Road. B, Ward 2 Gravity Drainage District Number 9 of Ward 2, $52,470.
I think we need to take them one at a time. I mean, don't we? And you didn't get a second.
Mr. Chairman, the motion was for A, so why don't we see
All
if
right.
C
Do you have any speakers?
A second.
Do I have a second? No.
Second.
Oh,
Mr. Andrew.
got a motion by Mr. Latour and a second by Mr. Anderpont. Any discussion? Mr. Landry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think these are the two items that were there on here a month ago. And I guess my question is, are they still in the same form that they were, that we're going to pay 100% and they're paying nothing?
I will answer that. Well, they're about to be spending a lot more money on other things. So instead of me trying to match every single little project they have coming up, that's why I'm offering to pay for these bigger projects. And
A $45,000 project is not a big project. I mean, if I was having to write the check, it would be, but that's a very small project for a drainage district. You know, we have to help people that want to help themselves. This district has an excess of $300,000 in reserve that was left over at the end of the year. I do not understand why they can't pay half.
I didn't ask
They
them to pay
double their
half.
money.
I didn't ask them to pay half because they're about to spend $200,000 on a track co, half of a building for $60,000. So, and they have to have some for a reserve.
Is the money, where's the money coming from?
My gaming funds.
It's coming out of yours? That's good.
The Ward 2.
As long as it's not Ward 3. The money, I'll just say, the money goes a lot, twice as far if
I
you
know.
share.
And, no, they're about to deplete all their funds
They
very
need a
shortly.
track hoe, because they don't, the one they got isn't even big enough to clean the ditches that they have in the district.
It's on their pricing right now.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. We have feedback here. Feedback.
That was you, Mr. President.
It's too loud.
All right, so I got a motion and a second. Do we have any objection? If not, motion carries. Item B, Ward 2 Gravity Drainage District Number 9 of Ward 2 for $52,470 for the purchase and installation of metal building for district. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I don't know where we are. I'm lost.
We on B, Ms. France.
I got the paper,
Ms.
but I
Sandy.
got the agenda, not the.
3B.
All right, so I
Number-
got a motion by
number
Mr.
three.
Latour and a second by Mr. Guidry. Any discussion? Any objection?
Ms. Trimmy, you should be sitting over here.
It's okay, I'll stay. Thank you.
Should have told her that, Jessica.
That item will carry. Item C, Ward 2 Community Center and Playground District Number 7 of Ward 2 for $200,000 for costs associated with construction of a covered pavilion at Hayes Park. I have a motion by Mr. Latour and a second by Mr. Landry. Any discussion? Any objection? That item will carry. D, Ward 8
Please move on, D.
Fire Protection District Number 2 for $14,859 for matching funds for the purchase of extrication equipment for the district. I have a motion by Mr. Latour and a second by Mr. Collins. Any discussion? Any objection? That item will carry. Item number 4, administrative presentation of the parish proposed fiscal year 2018 budget. Mr. Bean.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Is the microphone on? Hard to tell. We good?
No, you good,
No.
Brian.
We are pleased to present for your consideration tonight and over the next several weeks the proposed 2018 budget for the full police jury. And before we get into the presentation, which we'd like to do, I'd like to take just a moment to thank a few folks, because this process actually starts way back, I think, in August. And from our finance division, Judy Hewlett, Lindsay Merchant were key players. From our department administration, I want to thank Dane Boland, Jessica Williamson, Alberto Galan for their hard work throughout this process. You'll see the department heads out in the audience. They are very, of course, involved in this and making sure not only that we're providing the services you need us to provide, but do so in an efficient manner. And I want to thank them for all of their work. But to the one who oversees this very large and complex process is our finance director, Tammy Buffkin, and she's the one that deserves the most thanks. Tammy is a jewel, and I cannot overemphasize her importance to this police jury organization, and I want to thank you, Tammy. It is an outstanding product, and this will be something I believe you'll be very proud of. So with that, this is a presentation of some of the main points. Certainly answer any questions, and at the end, we'll go over next steps from here as far as the approval process and input from the public prior to that. And it's stuck.
That sounds like me. That's why I stacked.
Maybe I'm in the wrong seat.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the long load.
Emergency.
Creating a distraction.
Thank you, Alan.
Have a better reason that way till mine rings. I didn't turn it down.
There.
Got it? See if that works now.
Oh, no, I believe you got
Yeah.
this dog now.
I use that.
Just
It work,
skip.
it's working using these buttons here. I'm not sure if it's
Well,
gonna
that's
work.
okay.
All right.
But it's not showing it. Sorry, y'all.
My apologies. Let's start again.
We did this, we
Everything
did a run
was
through.
perfect, we wouldn't need Jesus.
We can't get off of that.
Everything is not perfect.
Okay, this is a familiar outline. We'd like to cover briefly the economic environment because that has a lot of bearing on the ability of you and your resources you can use for the services you provide. We'll then go through the fiscal budget, which is revenues, expenditures, and then I like to end with a look ahead. What's kind of on the horizon here for the next year that affects where we're headed? So let's get straight into that. If it'll switch to the next slide. Okay, I'm sorry, y'all. This hadn't happened before. It's working on the screen, but that doesn't do y'all much good, does it?
Tom's mad he didn't get more budget.
I'm gonna get out of the PowerPoint. I'm gonna show it that way. Well, I'm not either.
Okay, don't leave, Tom.
I don't want to be up here.
Thanks. Okay, I don't expect y'all to read this whole line, but the biggies from here, and this number is familiar, but it's important to keep saying, that this is the most recent, what's on the website for the Southwest Louisiana Economic Alliance. They have a good list of current projects in our area, which is the five-parish area, $43 billion. Most of that's petrochemical, but that is a lot of money being invested in our area. Another $73 billion announced for a total of 116. Now, are all those going to be done? We don't know. I suspect likely some not, but when you're in the $80 to $120 million range, I'm not going to quibble, and we've got a really bright future as far as the economic environment. This is a page from the Louisiana Workforce Commission. And as far as some good indicators, obviously economic projects are one. Another is, what is our unemployment rate? You can see at the text box at the top right, there are 9 MSAs in Louisiana. That's metropolitan statistical areas. Ours consists of Calcasieu and Cameron. And you can see we have the lowest unemployment rate throughout the state. It's very exciting. It's good news. And this has been for a while now. So that's another good indicator of where we are. Last but not least, where you want unemployment low, of course you want employment high. These are the numbers of persons employed in the MSA, the same area. As you can see, it's going in the right direction. Back in 2015, for the first time in the history of the parish, or the MSA, we crossed the 100,000 jobs threshold. Now that looks like way in the rearview mirror. We're currently up there almost at 115,000, and Dr. Scott, Lawrence Scott, in his annual projection, which just came out last month, sees the Lake Charles MSA as, again, second, maybe third year in a row, is the highest growing area for employment throughout the state at about 5.1% in jobs over the next 2 years. So if things go like this, and he's projecting a little bit of a lesser increase next year, but picking up at the end of 2018, 2019, you're looking at about 120,000 jobs. So very exciting news for us. A lot of responsibility for us as well. So let's look at the actual budget as proposed. Say this every year, but it's important. Your budget, as it is every year, is balanced. We have the revenues, current revenues, and we also have to pull from reserves that are from prior savings. But we've got what we need to carry out these services for you in 2018. You will see a lot of capital investment in this budget, several categories, but three of the big ones: roads, drainage, which we've been talking a lot about, and through bond issue and others, buildings and facilities. At the same time, I'm very proud of our departments. We have what I consider a small increase in operational spending. And even though we're adding some personnel and some other costs, they lessen it in other areas, and so the net is very small. I'm going to go through the the overall budget comparison, this year's budget compared to what's proposed. I'll then cover revenues and then expenditures. This is our summary and probably the most important news you want to see. What is our proposed budget? It is $233.5 million compared to this year's budget of $224.7 million. That represents an increase of the whole overall budget of 3.9%, very manageable number. You'll see that we highlighted the red part of these, what they call stacked bar charts. That is the capital element or portion of the budget, which is responsible for the bulk of that increase. And that's good news. That means you're investing more. And when you invest more, that means you're putting money in for the future. And you've been doing that for many years, and we've got a lot more for you in 2018 to carry out. This is the same information, but in table form, because if you want to get down to some of the numbers, I'll let you look at that for a moment. But again, these are the same four categories. You'll see at the bottom that the difference between this year's budget and the proposed is $8.7 million. There's a 3.9%. And you can see that 5.5 million of that 8.7 is from projected capital spending. That means 2/3 of your budget increase is on capital investments. That's good. That's a good thing. So the revenues we receive to carry out these services and investments, this will probably look familiar to you, but if you want a couple of key categories, you have property taxes. They're called ad valorem. That's just the formal name for them. That's a big category. The biggest one is sales taxes, which you have in the unincorporated areas. These are the two combined. You'll also see that we do pull some money from fund balance. That's good. That's when we need it for some of these larger projects that we've saved up for. And then some smaller categories. Gaming is down here on the bottom right. Occasionally, some people still think we make about 95% of our budget money here from gaming. It's 5%. Don't get me wrong. It's good money. It's important money. But it is a small piece of the pie, literally. And then we have some of the bond proceeds at the top. I'm not going to go through each category, but I want to hit on some of the main ones before we go to expenditures. This is our sales tax trend. This is the 1-cent tax you have throughout unincorporated areas. This is 2016, our projection, which we're already through most of the year, but you can see the economic activity is translating even more into sales taxes. That's not unusual. You'll find when you have especially industrial projects, which is our bread and butter for sales taxes, because most are in unincorporated areas. During construction is when you see these. It's less of a spike when you finish the projects and move on, but this is obviously a good thing. We can do a lot of good with those funds. We don't expect levels like this to continue, though. But it's certainly on the increase. So what we're projecting, I think, and Tammy can correct me if I'm wrong on this, I think probably about a 17% increase in sales taxes, excuse me, for 2018 overall. But we are seeing good trends, and that's encouraging for the investments we need to make. This is your property tax. Now, this isn't the revenue projections, that's the valuation. So when somebody says, what's your tax base? This is really what they mean. That means the value of property in the parish. And then the rate of your taxes is applied to that base to get your tax revenue. So when you look at this number, it's not a misprint. This chart goes up to $2.5 billion. Please don't think we get that in revenue. But the good news is a 4.7% increase in property valuations is healthy. It's again, I say this each year, but it's more of the turtle in the race, where the sales taxes is the hare. So you want that slow and steady as well as the other. I think one more revenue chart, and this is maybe it on revenues. People, of course, what is gaming? This chart, by the way, this is important. This is all public agencies. This isn't just the police jury. You get about 10 million of that. If you look at the trend, though, if you want to get a sense for what are the casino, how are they doing, because our revenues, of course, are reflective of that. I think this will be the last year we have to put this arrow, because Golden Nugget came in around here, and of course that's good. It made a difference. Since then, it's, I'd say, flat, slightly down. We project a 2.5% decrease in 2018. Two factors. The oil patch has been hurt, obviously, the last actually 2 or 3 years. And that, of course, Southeast Texas is a big part of that. So you have less people coming over to the casinos. And we believe the Hurricane Harvey, which is unbelievably impactful to that area, of course, for some period, will decrease some of the casino receipts, and for obvious reasons. And we understand that. But that doesn't mean it's going way down, but it's probably flat, slightly decreased. Okay, we're going to switch from revenues now to the expenditure side. And please, don't hesitate if you want me to stop on any of these, and I can try to answer any questions, or Tammy or anybody here. So where's the money projected to go next year as proposed? These are the categories we break down. This is not a whole lot different than prior. I suspect if you did a graph like this in 1982, that Public Works slice would be probably bigger, actually. I'm sure it would be, but it is our bread and butter, and that includes a lot of things. And you can see these other categories. I'll let you kind of go through those. But this is not a big difference from previous years as far as the percentages. Okay. And again, at the top, just as a refresher, this $233 million is the total proposed budget for next year. So let's break that down a bit to operations. Our operations budget is projected to go up 1.9% 2018. That is right, probably about the level of inflation, if that. Now, the good news is we are in, even with that small increase, we are putting in a 2.5% wage adjustment proposal, or what we call new placement in the wage table. And in 2017, we had a very good study led by Christina Joyce Wilson, our HR director, and we got good comparisons from around the state. So we, in several of our positions, we have gotten more in line with where we need to be. Some we were behind, some we were okay, some were a little ahead, kind of like, is it Goldilocks? But for the ones we're behind on, we're going to catch that up. We have in the proposed budget 14 personnel additions throughout the departments. Spread out mainly in engineering, public works, juvenile justice, and human services. That's Mr. Poley's department. A lot of that's due to grants. The increase to employers' share of health insurance premiums is up $25 per employee per month. Healthcare costs obviously are a concern for us as well as everybody else, but I will say this is not as big an increase as we've needed before. I want to give our staff a lot of credit in Laura Bolton's department for helping to have many things that we do to try to keep these costs down. The last one, I want to really tout this one. The 1.0% reduction in employers' portion of retirement costs. And I say tout, I have to give a lot of credit to the parochial employee retirement system. That's run out of Baton Rouge with that organization, but this is what all the parishes have for our retirement system. And we had the employer's portion that we have to put up, which is the police jury budget, is down a full % from last year. That's a lot of money saved for your budget to help with the retirement system. Even better news, this is the 5th year in a row this has gone down. It's now, I think, 11.5%. Now, if you look around the country and even in Louisiana, for example, in terms of, say, firemen retirement systems, law enforcement, they've got to pay in like 25% range. So this is very, very reasonable, and it's a well-run retirement system. Chris, did you have a question?
Isn't that Jerry Milner's involved in that organization?
He was. Tammy is actually on the board, as is your colleague, Ms. Trimmy, and I'll give full credit to them on the for all of this.
Well, they turned it around.
It's just the 5 board members, is all, but the staff is off.
Y'all turned it around.
Jerry, well, I'm glad you said that. Jerry was very instrumental several years ago starting this trend. You're right, working with Tom Sims, who's since retired, but they have a great staff. And I'm glad you said that, Chris. The board members, they supported some things where we had to kind of tighten things up, but the payoff is now. So that system is strong as any in the state. You don't have to worry about this one going insolvent at all. And we're very glad to be able to put that in the budget as a savings. Thank you, Chris. Okay, quickly to the capital project funds. This is the ones that we get excited about because, again, that means you're investing in something that has more of a benefit in future years. And so you're not just spending for today. Roads are always our biggest category of spending. That will make up about 61% of the capital funds of $131 million. I want to point out something we have already this week and other meetings started, but if you want to say, well, where's this drainage money y'all keep talking about? It's right here. Now, because engineers like using fancy terms, they call it stormwater. Alan, don't get mad at me. It's drainage capital. You call it whatever you want. We're just very happy to be able to say, let's take what we have. We have our revenue sources, and we use that, and we want to make sure we can maximize the use of those taxes for the needs you have. So we're able to keep and even grow our road system, but shift more money to drainage, which you have really pushed us hard to do, and we feel like we have a very good response in this budget to start many projects across this parish and of all types, and certainly can answer any questions on that. Just want to pull out a few examples. I mentioned drainage, but transportation, all of these that are listed, I think, are technically extensions, road extensions. But for space services, for space purposes, I didn't list that. But Coach Williams, I know Hal isn't he in the audience? Thank you. You notice he's on the front row. It's like, Brian, if you don't put that in there, this is a big deal. We're going to get started on that. Johnny Bro Road is over near Vinton area. This is a big extension to help. This will be a big item as far as economic development over there because it will help the port be more connected to things that we need to do to help them thrive, which helps that area of the parish. East Carlos Drive is the latest right south of Sulphur there that will continue that growth. Hamree Road over here south of Lake Charles, important. That one is a westward extension all the way connecting Big Lake Road to Elliott, and of course we want to get started on that. And not as talked about, but I believe, I know, very important is we have so many bridges, and I don't know if Tim off the top of his head could tell us, but we replace a lot of those every year. And the reason I know y'all think it's important is because when we have to close a bridge, y'all, until it's open, it's headaches, but we do a lot of those, and I want to give Tim and his crew credit, and we project 8 of those in 2018. Yes, sir.
We're just gonna make clear that out of those 8, one of them is not the I-10 bridge.
Or Westlake.
You would say that.
Well, we want to be clear.
Definitely.
As much as I'd like to say it was,
I
yeah.
wish it was as well.
Or Westlake.
One day, I'd like to be able to stand up here one day and say that. Okay, in addition to the road side of things, we also have many services, of course, that have buildings, and we don't have, most of ours aren't just regular old buildings, if there is such a thing. We've got a lot of specialty ones. One we're very excited about, that I believe will be the first of these bond issue projects to start construction pretty soon, is our juvenile justice facility out on East Preen Lake Road. Very impressive. We're excited to get that started. We're still in the design phase for a lot of 2018 for the coroner's office, but I know several of the jurors have been ready to get this going. I want to thank Dean Kelly and his staff. We've elevated that and sped it up a great deal. I think hopefully before the year's out in 2018, we'll get started on the construction of that. But it's a lot of good design. It will be a bigger, better facility out there at Kirkman and Prien. And of course, I didn't mean to click so quick. We got a couple of others that are certainly just as important. Parks, everybody loves the parks. It's not listed here because it's not a to-do anymore. The River Bluff Park just opened in Moss Bluff. It's an exciting day. I asked Alan just the other day, I said, how, you know, he lives up there. You seeing a lot of folks? And he said, absolutely. And we are so excited about that. And we got parks all over this parish, though. We got to keep improving. You see a good list of some next year. And they're, as you can see from the locations, they're all over, and I didn't list all of them. The big one, though, is Prien Lake Park boat launch. That goes back way before the expansions. That's been there for a long time, but it gets used heavily, and it is important, and that's going to be a very large project that will, when it's done, you'll notice those improvements a great deal.
Brian?
Yes, sir.
Chris?
Sorry, I got another question. On that boat launch, are they gonna make it such that a large boat can, because that's some of the problems right now.
Yeah,
You got a
honestly,
big
I'd
boat,
like
you can't launch
either
it.
Dane or Dean to answer that, because I'll probably say it wrong, but
The one that we have on the north side, you can launch a large boat there that's been repaired, but I just
Got a
didn't
yes.
know, is that capability also gonna be at the Prien Lake launch once you get finished with it or not?
Yes, sir, Mr. Landry. I'm getting a slight nod from Mr. Kelly in the back, so he's saying yes.
Okay.
It's also going to level out the actual launch itself. Having a set of 2 tiers as you launch your boat, it'll just be a 1-tier gradual decrease.
I've gotten a number of calls on that.
yeah, I have too. It's certainly one that we've been needing to do, and it's time, and I think that one is very soon to get started. So, yes, thank you. That's a good question. Mr. White, did you have a question?
Yes, Mr. Bean, just a point of clarification, the River Bluff Park did open, but we still have other phases yet to do for that park.
Thank you. Yes, we do. Yes. Thank you for saying that. That was the latest phase that just opened. And I will say, just since you brought it up, because it's the only place we have, the level and the type of playground equipment there is really good. Kevin, you were there for the opening.
Very nice.
And it's got special for all ages, it's got for handicap, and it's exciting to see that. So thank you for mentioning that, Kevin. All right, about to wrap up here. Call it a look ahead. I wanted to put it this way. We're not a parish in transition. We are a parish in transformation, and I don't think that's too strong a word. So what does that mean exactly? The way I like to put it, we're in the big leagues now. Just like many of you, I was a big fan of watching the World Series and the Astros winning, and that's the big leagues. And the reason I wanted to use that is because baseball, even more probably than football, basketball, any other sport, has a very strong minor league system that feeds into it. And the reason that's important, the minor leagues are very good, AAA, AA, single. But when you get sent to the big leagues, if you don't make it, they're going to send you back down real quick. Now, what has that got to do with us? Well, I feel pretty comfortable saying that the theme of what we're trying to do here, not just the police jury, but the whole area, is grow and have better things, but keep what we love about Southwest Louisiana. But you can keep those things that are good, but if you're going to grow and you're going to have this kind of money, billions invested, the people here and the people coming are going to expect things to be a little more on a higher level. I don't think anybody wants to be the size of Houston. That's not what I mean. The size isn't important. It's what is your approach to things. My backing for this, if you look at our employment levels, I can tell you for many years, guys, we were in the mid-80s. In 2014, though, we're up to 98,000, and I mentioned earlier, 120,000 projected in just 2 years. That is a great amount of growth for jobs. Our MSA, the Lake Charles, Cameron area, fastest growing MSA, not in the state, in the United States. Latest data, this just came out, 8.1%. You know about the $43 billion? This is, I used this slide last year. It's so good I want to throw it in because we cannot take this for granted. So as the old expression goes, with this kind of, gift, if you will, it comes with a lot of responsibilities. And what happens? People's expectations are higher, and that's what I'm leading to. Citizens, rightly, and I know it's tough sometimes when you solve a problem and then say, what about this? But these are just 4 examples, but think of the traffic. It's not just during construction. This is going to be higher from here on out. I don't have to mention flooding too much. I think we all know that maybe should be the first one. Affordable housing and rental housing, prices are high. We got to keep up with that. And then I lumped a lot under quality of life. That might be culture, might be recreation, entertainment. All of these and probably 20 other things. They're not asking government to do everything. Certainly not. But the biggies that are more infrastructure especially, it's sort of reaching, as y'all know, a pitch of when are we going to fix fill in the blank? When are we going to take care of fill in the blank? I think little old Lake Charles or Calcasieu from 30 years ago, we probably didn't get the complaints, but I would rather have higher expectations and meet them than not strive to have the higher expectations. So we're not backing from that. I'm just saying we kind of need to recognize we are in a transformative environment, and you have the ability to shape that, be a part of that. I feel very strongly your budget this year and the one we propose fold into that very well, and we can have these services provided with your leadership and support of the budget as proposed. And I think I have one more slide, and what comes with that, though, and I really like this quote, that there are risks and costs to action, meaning not doing things the same way, but they are far less than the long-range risk of comfortable inaction. And so as we look forward to 2018, I think this will be a good theme for us, give you something that you can support, and we can support you in the services you want us to provide. So with that, I'll end, Mr. Chairman, with a quick next steps. Today is the 16th of November. The budget comment period is through December 21st. We will have a public hearing November 30th, which will be right before police jury committee night, I believe. And then we are asking your adoption of the budget at your December 21st regular meeting. Certainly, if there's a committee meeting needed between now and then, we can do that, and Mr. White can kind of just stay in touch. But with that, we certainly will answer any questions you may have. If not, we'll go on to the next item.
Have any questions or comments from any of the jurors? We do have one speaker on this item, Mr. Charlie Atherton.
Please, sir.
Please state your name and address for the record, sir.
Charlie Atherton, 122 Vine Street. This time of year with the budget, the presentation is always to the public very refreshing. It's one of the more open, transparent activities that the parish does. It's extremely user-friendly. And all year long, if anybody has any questions or concerns, the staff is always very helpful to get them focused right on whatever information they need. So the public is very appreciative of this entire process and the end product. I had speaking in generalities, I had a couple of questions because in the parishes, it was very refreshing to hear the parish refer to and emphasize the need for the CRS program. Because I know years ago when I talked to Pam Sturck before she retired, the program was not fully funded and they did not follow the program in its entirety, was my recollection of our conversation. So I guess my quick question would be, there's a new CRS program out now, because this program puts real dollars in people's hands, and it's one of the immediate paybacks and benefits to the citizens is extremely important. And I was just curious, since the new program came out, is it fully funded so that you can follow the entire program, or are you just following sections of it? I was just interested to know if you have the money and the resources there to fully support it.
Mr. Crane?
Mr. Chairman, yes, sir. Dana Watkins is our floodplain manager, and she oversees our CRS program for the parish. And there are many activities that
that's why I'm asking the question.
many activities that can be done throughout that program that we are seeking to do and trying to do new programs so that it lowers our rate, so that it benefits the individuals in this parish. And so, yes, we are, we have monies available to do that, and each department within the parish participates in some way because of the activities that they do. We can count a lot of those activities and get points for them. So, yes, we're...
at the moment, though, you're still not able to get the full total benefit of what it offers because it's so involved in detail.
It is a very voluminous.
Right.
I mean, you could spend all your resources trying to get the points. And so we try to there's a balance there that we have, and we try to get the most that we can, though. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir. And I was, it's interesting that, like Brian says, we are in the big league, and it talked about citizens' expectations. And we agree on the first comment about the roads and the drainage. I would just ask the question to make sure that the budget would include the ability and the money in there to be able to develop a master drainage and a master drainage maintenance plan. That would be in there, because that obviously a lot of people, they don't even understand such a plan doesn't exist. So we just want to make sure that next year there's nothing to slow that process down.
Yeah, I can answer that, and Alan can certainly add if needed. But to answer Charlie's question, the one I mentioned is the capital side, which we haven't had as much investment at that, so that is new. But yes, we do have the funds. What is commonly called maintenance, which we probably don't break out as much, that's part of what we call the engineering public works operational budget. And so we will continue, and matter of fact, it's an increased amount, Charlie, on what we project as far as how many ditches we spray and mow and spray and dig out, if you will. And the answer is a definite yes. It's a higher amount, but it is, and maybe Alan can narrow it down, what portion of that, but it's several $1 million already and will be more in 2018 on the maintenance side. One last thing, I know you didn't ask, but it's in line with what you're asking. Our goal on that, and we're starting with 2018, is to mirror what we already do through your capital road program, which, as you know, every year we do a 3-year projected road program, and we change it every year and update it. So we have, it's not as definitive a list yet, but for 2019 and 2020, we also are projecting some drainage projects. So That's not next year, but we want to get to where we can look ahead, not just next year, but 3 years.
Okay, I appreciate that. I was just one, you may not want to touch this one, but I was just, it's going on as long as I've been here, is anything new to address the parking around the parish complex? Anything in the works, or
Well,
are we pretty well, I mean, are we maxed out? And
No, look, I'll touch that one. I know that's sensitive. The main point we want to bring up on that one, and it's just out of necessity, the Family and Juvenile Court project, the actual facility for that, which is planned to be where the current Magnolia Building parking garage is. That's an old one that needs to be, it can't really be repaired to its needs. That, but the laydown yard and the area going over construction, we wanted to wait and have the garage, any garage downtown here not take place until after that's complete, just because of the construction period and the space needed. So that's a delay, but when you look at priorities, that's the answer, Charlie, on that, but it's definitely not something we've forgotten.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you. I always appreciate your
Sure.
time and your patience.
Thank you, Mr. Joe. I'd like to end item number 4, which is no action needed, with a small comment. Thank you, Brian, for the presentation, and thank you, staff, for working countless hours, putting all this together for us to look over and vote on in December. Moving on to item number 5, any other matters for consideration?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Good job.
We're adjourned.
That's right.